Sam had always believed that the day she finally discovered the truth about her father's disappearance would bring her relief. For years, the question, why did he leave, had lived inside her like a wound that never healed. Quiet, deep, and aching every time she looked at a happy family walking past. But that morning, as sunlight streamed through the thin curtains of her small room on the farm, she felt nothing close to relief. Instead, her heart trembled because the truth she had been searching for had a name. And that name was Lee. She stood at the doorway of the old barn, gripping the rough wooden frame until splinters dug into her palm. Lee was there, kneeling beside the half-finished brick stove he had built for her the day before. He looked so calm, so gentle, so impossibly steady. The sight almost broke her again. "Lee," she called, her voice thin, trembling. He turned. The smile on his face, the smile she had once thought could fix every shattered piece of her heart, slowly faded. "Sam? What's wrong?" Sam swallowed hard. Her throat burned with 1,000 unsaid questions. I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth." Lee stood up slowly, wiping dust from his hands. "Of course, anything." But he didn't know. He didn't know that the world Sam trusted was already collapsing under her feet. This morning, when she visited the old neighbor woman, someone who had known her family for decades, Sam had innocently asked again about the day her father left. She did not expect an answer. She had asked the same question every year since she was 12. But this time, the woman sighed, glanced away, and whispered, "Your father didn't leave because he wanted to. He left because someone threatened him. Someone close to you now." Sam's heart stopped. And when she whispered, "Who?" she was not prepared for the reply. It was Lee. Now standing in front of him, she felt anger, sorrow, disbelief, and a strange, painful longing all battling inside her chest. "Lee," she whispered, her voice breaking. Did you make my father leave? Did you threaten him?" Lee's eyes widened, not with confusion, but with something deeper, something darker, and that frightened Sam more than any answer he could give.
For a long second, Lee said nothing. He just stood there, frozen by the weight of Sam's question. The old wooden door of the house creaked behind him as the evening wind pushed through, but he didn't move. His eyes lowered, not in guilt, not in fear, something deeper, something he had buried for years. "Sam," he finally spoke, his voice low, rough, almost trembling. "If I tell you the truth, you will hate me." Sam felt her breath catch. Her fingers curled tightly around the edge of her jacket. She wanted to stay calm, but every second of silence made her chest hurt more. "Just tell me," she whispered. "I deserve to know why he left me, why he abandoned our family, why I had to grow up alone." Lee exhaled, long and heavy, as if he had been carrying the confession his entire life. He took a step closer, then stopped, too afraid to stand near her, yet too afraid to walk away. "It wasn't supposed to happen," he said quietly. "I never meant for him to leave. I tried to protect you." Sam frowned sharply. "Protect me? How could breaking my family protect me?" Lee's jaw tightened. She saw pain flicker across his expression, a pain she had never understood until now. "Your father got into serious trouble. He owed money to the wrong people, dangerous people. They threatened him, and they threatened you." Sam blinked. Her heart thudded hard against her ribs. "They said they would burn your house, take you away." Lee swallowed, eyes glistening with old fear. So I went to them. I told them if they let your family go, I'd take the blame. I told them your father had nothing, that I would pay his debt. Sam stared at him, stunned. And they agreed, Lee said, trembling. But only if your father left immediately, disappeared, never showed his face again. The world around Sam seemed to fade. The sound of crickets, the cold of the evening air, even the bitterness she carried for years, everything blurred. You? She breathed. You made that deal? Lee nodded slowly. I thought it was the only way to save you, he whispered. So yes, Sam, your father left because of me. The truth hit her harder than anger, harder than betrayal. It hit her with something she never expected. The realization that the boy she once knew had silently carried the burden of her broken family, all to protect her.
The air between Sam and Lee felt heavier than the thick clouds gathering over the mountains outside. Sam stood in the doorway, her breathing uneven, her fingers still trembling after hearing the old woman's confession. The truth, that her father had left because of something involving Lee, echoed again and again in her mind like a cruel reminder she could not escape. Lee stood frozen near the wooden table, his hands resting on its edge as if he needed something solid to hold on to. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. It was as if the silence demanded they confront everything they had avoided for so long. Finally, Sam lifted her eyes. Lee, tell me it's not true. Her voice was not loud, but it cut straight through him. He swallowed hard. He had imagined this moment many times, but now that it had arrived, he felt the ground beneath him shift. Sam, I never wanted you to find out like this. Her heart sank. So it is true. Lee closed his eyes. Yes, but it's not what you think. Anger rose in Sam's chest. Then tell me what it is. Tell me why my father walked away from everything, his home, his life, me, and why you never said a word. Lee stepped closer, but she stepped back, shaking her head. The distance between them felt wider than ever. Your father came to me, Lee began slowly, voice trembling, long before you knew anything was wrong. He told me someone was threatening your family because of a debt he couldn't repay. He begged me to stay away from you, to make you hate me, so you and I wouldn't get dragged into it. Sam stared at him, stunned. That doesn't make sense. Why you? Why involve you at all? Because I was the one who helped him get the loan in the first place. I trusted the wrong people, they turned on him, and when he realized the danger, he sacrificed himself so you wouldn't be pulled into it too. Sam's breath caught. For a moment, she felt as if the world had tilted sideways. Her father, her childhood hero, had disappeared not because he didn't love her, but because he loved her too much. And you let me hate you for it, she said softly, tears welling. Lee nodded, guilt twisting inside him, because it was the only way to keep you safe. Sam wrapped herself around. The truth hurt. It hurt deeply, but beneath the pain, a new question formed, one that terrified her. If her father had sacrificed everything to protect her, then what had Lee sacrificed? And why did he still look at her as if she was the only thing that had ever mattered?
The silence that followed felt endless. Sam didn't move, didn't blink, didn't breathe. Lee stood just a few steps away, but the distance between them suddenly felt like an ocean. His confession still echoed in the air, raw, painful, and heavy. I never wanted to hurt you, Lee whispered, as if he was afraid his voice might shatter her further. But your father, he believed he was protecting you, and I was selfish enough to let him believe that. Sam lifted her head slowly, her lips trembling.
Protect me from what, Lee? From you? Her words hit him like a blade sliding between the ribs, quiet, clean, merciless. He swallowed hard. From his debt, from the people who were after him. He thought distancing himself from you would keep you safe. He thought, if he disappeared, their attention would disappear too. Tears pooled in her eyes. You knew, and you didn't tell me. Lee's voice cracked. I thought telling you would endanger you more. I thought I could keep everything away from you. I was wrong. Every choice I made, every secret I kept, it only hurt you more. Sam took a shaky breath, the anger inside her twisting into grief. All these years I blamed myself. I thought he left because of me, because I wasn't enough, because I wasn't worth staying for. Lee stepped closer but stopped when she flinched. His hands curled helplessly at his sides. Don't say that, Sam. You were the only thing he cared about. You were the only reason he fought so hard. Her tears finally fell, hot and unrestrained. Then why didn't he come back? Why did he die without telling me anything? Lee's face tightened. Because he thought you hated him for leaving. He told me to stay close to you, to look after you. He wanted me to give you the life he couldn't. The wind whispered through the doorway, carrying the weight of everything left unsaid between them. Sam wiped her tears with the back of her hand. Looking after me doesn't mean lying to me, Lee. I know. His voice softened. And I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make this right, if you let me. Sam looked at him, truly looked at him, seeing not the man who hid the truth, but the man who carried it alone for her sake. Her heart hurt, but it also softened. We're not the same people we were back then, she said quietly. But if you really want to make things right, then start by telling me everything, every truth you kept. Lee nodded, his voice steady for the first time that night. I will, Sam, I promise, no more secrets. And as the morning light slowly filled the room, Sam felt something shift, not forgiveness, not yet, but the first fragile step toward understanding, the first step toward healing.